Everyone, welcome to this webinar on Marketing Hub plus Data Hub, getting better data, better marketing, and better results from it all. Here with Nick Carbone from HubSpot today to dive into everything you need to know really around Data Hub and Marketing Hub. It's been really interesting actually seeing everybody that's registered for this and their kind of different levels of uses with HubSpot. Some of you already have Data Hub, some of you don't have Data Hub. I think everyone's kind of asking the same questions right now, which is like we have so much data in our HubSpot portal. We have so much data actually everywhere available to us, but it's a bit of a mess. We don't really know how to make it work in the most effective way possible. We don't know how to like confine all of it into the right kind of packages to actually use within HubSpot. And hopefully, with Nick today, we'll be able to unpack that. Nick, I'll do my best to intro you, but I'm hoping you can, build upon it. But you've been at HubSpot since 2017. I know when we first got chatting, I was like, yeah, really impressed with all the areas that you've dug into, like during your time in HubSpot in terms of implementation, product, go to market, like the full kind of suite and experience of HubSpot. But now you find yourself in Data Hub and marketing Data Hub essentially all the way since it's been Operations Hub, right? And yeah, it's been a interesting journey.
Yeah, actually, we can celebrate this week. I believe Tuesday was Operations Hub's fifth birthday. So now called Data
Yep.
Hub. It got a name change as it grew up, but our fifth birthday was this week. But yeah, I've been in a bunch of different places at HubSpot. I think from being customer facing when I first started to then working on the product team for Sales Hub, CRM, and then Operations Hub when that launched in 2021. Um, and now marketing, I think like what's interesting about my background in context of our conversation today is I've actually experienced a lot of the problems
Mm.
that Data Hub can now help solve. So if you think about data availability for a frontline onboarding rep where they can maybe get a little more context about the customer they're working with, moving into products where like maybe my marketing team wasn't getting product usage data in the right way to be able to help us drive activation or upsell or something like that. And now in marketing, everybody knows marketers are always hungry for more data to do better segmentation or better attribution reporting. So it's kind of cool to sit in the Data Hub seat now and be able to evangelize or like talk about these features that help solve some of the problems that I've experienced
Yeah.
and helped solve actually across my time at HubSpot.
Yeah. Awesome. And like you, I have like had the experience of seeing so many customers, so many HubSpot users who have these issues with huge amounts of data, unstructured data, messy data, and not really knowing what to do with it. You know, they've got this amazing marketing tool that they know can do so much if they just had the right data to use. So hopefully we'll be able to unpack that for everyone today. Just quick housekeeping. We should absolutely use Nick as much as we can today, guys. So if you have any questions or want to see anything inside of Data Hub, anything at all, like just pop a comment in the chat or in the comments section, and we can get straight to that. It would also be really interesting just to know who actually has Data Hub and who doesn't have Data Hub. Um, just yeah, so we can kind of frame things as we go through. So if you can drop a message and just say, yeah, we do, we don't, that would be interesting to see. But yeah, I suppose, Nick, first of all, it'd be interesting to hear from your side and kind of frame what are the problems that you're seeing right now when it comes to data inside of HubSpot. I suppose I want to get everybody listening kind of nod along thinking that is me and this can solve it.
Yeah, I think we actually had a lot of meetings about this recently as a team to align on like the core problems that we want to solve for. And the two that came to the forefront were segmentation and reporting. Those being just the two core jobs of a marketer that require the most data. So if you think about it right now, like if I'm in Marketing Hub, but it's acknowledged the fact that I have other apps in my tech stack. If I'm missing critical customer context from those apps, my segments aren't going to be as tight or as accurate or drive as much revenue downstream as I'd want them to. So that's the thing there. Like we want to make sure with the tools in Data Hub that we're bringing in data from external systems that you need to do better segmentation and just personalize your messaging a little bit more for customers. And then on top of that, the other very important thing that I've noticed on my time on the marketing team as a marketer, we are always desperate to prove that we are valuable to our organization. I think it's okay to admit that. Like, it's very hard sometimes to prove our worth. Like, things that I do might have an impact 2 to 3 steps downstream. So it's very important to me and my team to be able to point to the things that we did to say like, "Hey, this worked. This like helped. This drove X amount of revenue." And then for us too, like ourselves, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things and we're able to evolve or kind of pivot our strategy as we need to. So kind of the core jobs we want to solve with Data Hub are data availability for segmentation and reporting, and then just overall data quality, which helps those two things as well. So we want to make sure that not only is our data available, but it's also trustworthy, meaning it's complete, accurate, and up to date.
Yeah, I think trustworthy is the word that stands out there for me because I know from reporting, in like many companies and for customers, it's very rare that you can say, I am 100% confident in this data and trust it wholeheartedly. Everything that I'm seeing here is 100% accurate. Like there's so many caveats you usually have to give when you're presenting something like, we think this is right, but actually, it might be showing this as well, but we're roughly on the right lines. Or, the worst case is you actually end up having to export data and aggregate it in an Excel spreadsheet or another platform to actually get to the point where you trust something.
Yeah, that brings up another good, maybe more tangible problem that we are trying to solve with Data Hub is just data management overall.
Yeah.
The demo that I'll show of Data Studio in just a moment, we're actually going to connect to a live Google Sheet and bring that data into HubSpot. We will combine it, process it, clean it up a little bit, and then we'll build a report with it. So maybe the alternative that some folks on the webinar watching the recording or what have you might be doing is they might be like you said, exporting that data, trying to build the report in Sheets or running imports and exports of Sheets in and
Mm.
out of HubSpot on like a weekly basis, like just like small or medium quality of life things like that. We're trying to solve for with Data Hub as well. So data management for folks that are maybe not in a RevOps or admin type data focused role.
Yeah, and the main causes of this that I see are usually like untrustworthy data entering the system in the first place. I can't tell you how many times I've been into a portal and seen like Colin's import or Dave's import as a contact source. I'm like, ah, yeah, I know the one. Colin's been to an event and he's got some contacts and has just imported it, and it's all unformatted in the correct ways. Or we've got tons of data platforms now available to us that are so easy to sync and just drive and plow in so much data into HubSpot. And yeah, it's a real issue.
Yeah. And like again, I'll show Data Studio in a moment, but it sits, I think the core thing to know about it before we get into the demo is that it sits between the CRM and the rest of your world. So think of it sort of like I won't call it a sandbox because we already have a different tool called Sandbox. So, but it really is like this like holding area or this middle ground between CRM and the rest of the world. So external data comes in, Collins import can live there, and we can make
Yeah.
sure it's all good, high quality data, and then we can choose what to do with it, either in a downstream tool like reports or segments, or we can then directly commit it to the CRM.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, before we do get into the demo, I really liked the way that you framed Data Hub when we were chatting before around marketers becoming their own ops team. I don't know if you just want to like vibe on that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think like one of the core problems we set out to solve when we relaunched Operations Hub as Data Hub last year, we wanted to like going back a step, we changed the name for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Like we want to sort of democratize access to data inside of HubSpot. It should not be the responsibility of this mythical admin or RevOps ops person that has the keys to everything. We want to make sure that every user in HubSpot, especially the marketer, is able to access and manage and use their data downstream. So the tools that I'm going to show, they're easy to use, in my opinion. I am a marketer by trade, so you're going to watch me use them live. So it's a very good indicator of kind of where we're heading with this product, where we want to make sure um, that Data Hub gives everyone the tools they need to like keep their data complete, clean, up to date, and accurate, and vis-a-vis like trustworthy with Data Hub.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Do you want to get into it?
I can for sure. So let me make sure I have the right window. Okay. We should see Data Studio
Yeah,
now.
awesome. Got it.
Cool. So I'm actually gonna back up a step. You should now see a Google Sheet called Demo Customer Data for Data
Yeah.
Studio. Um, Setting the scene here, the scenario I'm gonna walk us through. I'm a marketer, and I have been getting product usage data from my product team in a spreadsheet. And, I need to use that data for segmentation or for reporting purposes or what have you. But up until now, I have been once a week or once a day, even importing this into some custom properties I've created. And then I overwrite that data the next day or the next week when I re import this sheet, and so on and so on. And it's a pretty big headache for me. I don't feel like it's an accurate or an easy way to do things. And it's just becoming a burden. So I've got this sheet that's automatically filled out or that the product team provides me with an email address that they use to identify some users, their basic information, and then most importantly, like their last engagement date and the number of logins, which I need to use as a marketer to understand where I might have opportunities to drive upgrades or just understand usage patterns in my product. So that brings us to Data Studio. And you can find Data Studio if you have Data Hub in this little, I'm calling it like a hamburger icon. It just looks like a sandwich or a hamburger to me personally. Maybe it's because it's almost lunchtime here in the States, but you can find it here under Data Studio. And what Data Studio is, I won't play the video. Like I mentioned before, it's this middle ground between the CRM and the rest of your world. So what you do in Data Studio is you connect external sources like Google Sheets, like I just showed, or like almost I think 120 other apps we have available in here. So everything from like Zero, Pipedrive, Airtable down to enterprise data warehouses like Snowflake, BigQuery. You see Amazon S3 buckets here. We can connect to all kinds of different data sources in Data Studio, which then transfer into our source library. Um, I'll make one quick note. None of those connections require code. They're very similar to like our data sync integrations. If folks are familiar with those, you just authenticate the app on both sides. You're obviously logged into HubSpot, and then you authenticate with the other app, and then we make the connection for you. And you tell us basically what data you want to bring in from each app. And then that subset of data comes into this library. So I have a bunch of different stuff connected in here. You can tell we demo quite often out of this portal. But you basically have this library of external sources, and this does not live in CRM yet, which is super, super cool. So it's just here waiting for me or for someone else to determine what to do with it. Okay, that is my source library. What do I do with this? I've been kind of alluding to it. I create data sets. So actually, I'll jump back one step. I forgot to show one thing was this Google Sheet is syncing essentially live with the actual Google Sheet here. So this is my prime sheet. This is where the data is written. Every about 3 to 5 or 7 minutes, somewhere in there, this sheet just refreshes, or I can manually refresh it. But my source library is kept up to date, which is super, super important. So it's an essentially like live-ish sync with that external source that's going to inform the data sets that we create here in a second. I'll pause there, Dan. Any questions that you had or things I could cover a little bit more before we build our first data
One
set?
question, can you combine sources together into a data set?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. You can. So what I'm going to show, I'm going to skip a few steps here just to save us time to show some cooler stuff. But I have pre-built a very simple data set. But let's say I only got like email address and usage data from that sheet. What I can do is use like a key, so something that I know in one source of data and something that I know in another, in this case, email address, to match up data from two different sources. So short answer to that question, yes, I can absolutely combine sources. So this one's super straightforward. I just pulled in first and last name for my CRM. You can see the little HubSpot sprocket here. And then the rest of this data is all from that Google Sheet. And if I wanted to, I could add, I think, up to three more. So for a total of five sources, I could continue to add either stuff from HubSpot or any other external sources that I have. And you can see it like kind of mirrors the custom report builder options if folks are familiar with that. But we've got all of our objects and then some other data types that you can pull in as well and join to this data set.
Yeah, and I think the power of that, Nick, and you mentioned it at the start, is there's often such incomplete data in portals that by combining these different sources, having access to a range of data just helps to like consolidate it and give you the the best picture possible of your contacts, companies, and other objects.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like what's really important about Studio, oftentimes data just needs a little bit of work or needs to be combined with other data before it's truly valuable to us in HubSpot. And I'll show an example where I create like a super simple score here in a second, but like there might just be some cleanup we need to do or some enrichment. Or we might not even ever need it in the CRM. It could be something
Yeah.
that's like single use, like a webinar follow up email or something like that. I maybe don't need a property for like, did they attend webinar? Yes or no. Maybe I just pull this data in to Data Studio and send that email directly through a data set, which I'll show here
Ooh.
in a sec.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. So what I've got here, like I mentioned, I had joined two data sources. So very simple, kind of basic, hopefully not boring data set, but I have pulled in first name and last name. If I wanted to, I could continue to add other, excuse me, let me go back here to my columns. I could add from contacts other
Mhm.
properties, or I could add from those other sources any other properties that I want. I can also select or deselect properties from my external source, so this Google Sheet to customize the view in here as well. But I'm going to leave those. You can also resize and just do all the normal stuff you'd expect in a view like this. But what's really cool, what's interesting to me at least, you can create a couple different types of new columns. So if I wanted to say here for my example, like custom use score, and I've got two columns in here. I got number of logins and their account value. So for whatever reason, I wanted to invent my own score and say, the account value divided by the number of logins is really important to me. Like that ratio is going to help me determine, my best customers or customers that are really using a lot, and also like spending a lot with us. What I can do is add a formula with AI pretty easily. So I can say divide account value by number of logins last 3 months. And Breeze is going to take a second to think, and then it will actually do all the hard work for me. So back to the point about
Yeah.
marketers being enabled with Data Hub. Cool. I have now created my custom use score. You can see here on the left, and it did all this for me. It pulled in the exact like kind of property token I needed, did the operator, and then same thing, the other property token that I needed here to create this custom score. If I had wanted to, I could have done that myself. We have a whole library. You can see in here, like I have a whole library of things I can do. I can summarize conditional logic, compare dates. I can go back in and add an even more complex formula if I wanted to, using a library of functions, every single HubSpot property in this data set, every single field in this data set, or I could even pull in like snippets of kind of pre-built formulas that we have here in a library as well.
Yeah. Do you know what I love so much about this is just how user friendly it is. If you try and use any kind of data aggregation tool that's pulling in multiple sources, all of a sudden you're getting into the area of needing to actually understand code and like different regex formulas and all of this stuff to actually combine this data. But the value for me here is businesses that are doing consistent like uploads of data. They've got data scattered across multiple sources. The business is using, 5, 10 different pieces of software across different functions. Your ability to bring that all together inside of HubSpot, use it potentially before it even goes into your CRM. Like, let's say, your engineering team or your support team want to send out an email to support customers, that might be via their support tool that they have. Well, you can bring all of that data into HubSpot. You don't necessarily need to have it in your CRM because it's just a one off email. Combine it with
Yep.
your existing data, if there is any, send it out like all through Data Studio. It just yeah, I mean, the power of this thing, and I didn't really understand it until a few months ago when I actually started to, well, first get the trial and like play about it. I just, yeah, it is incredible.
It's good stuff. I think I'll say two things. Then when I was customer facing, the number of times I helped a customer set up like a Zapier
Yeah,
connection, like a Zap between a sheet and HubSpot, just dozens of
yeah,
times that customers needed to do that. The other thing that I'll say is this is kind of like, behind the scenes inside intelligence here, but if you have a platform that does not integrate natively with HubSpot whatsoever, but you do have it can bring data into a CSV or into Sheets or something like that. We've seen a couple customers that are able to like basically push data into a sheet and then use Data Studio as the middleware to integrate that data with HubSpot where no other connection was available. So some kind of cool stuff you can do here, working a little bit outside the lines, maybe with what we officially designed Data Studio to do.
Yeah, that's a neat use case.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to show how these data sets are used. So I prepped my data right. I've been able to add some columns. I've been able to join it with other data if I had wanted to, which I forgot to show in my demo. I could have used data agent in here as well. So if I wanted to do a natural language prompt to say, hey, like, based on what you know about this customer's industry and their product usage, please craft a short sentence that I can use in an email to encourage them to use XYZ tool. I could do that. So I could add brand new data to this data set with the help of data agent. So our AI data guy here inside the data set. Um, but once this is all prepped, I can use it in several different places. So I'm going to show a report use case in a second. But to Dan's point before about like a one-off follow-up, if I just wanted to enroll folks in this data set in a workflow for whatever reason, I could do that without ever having to commit this data to CRM. So if I wanted to say like, hey, I'll apply actually a filter and say, if what I have subscription in here is any of what do I have? Advanced was one of my options, my demo options here. I could filter this data set down just to folks that are on whatever my advanced subscription is. And if I wanted to follow up with those people based on maybe the number of logins as a secondary filter, I could do that. I can enroll just now the members in this part of the data set in a workflow. Similarly, I could put them onto a list based on any filters or any data that I want to have in here. What's really cool about that, we're going to get into the weeds for just a second here. If I were to enroll this data set in a workflow, I would be able to reference any of the data in this data set in conditional branches and workflow variables, which is very, very, very cool to be able to use data that doesn't actually live in the CRM to do filtering or even part of like maybe a custom code workflow action or a webhook or something like that. You can get pretty deep in the weeds here with some of the stuff you can do with data sets and automation. Okay. But by far, though, the top use case that we have seen from customers and was something that we were very surprised to see maybe was just reporting based on external data. So if I click report here, the data set is going to be transported along with myself into the custom report builder. So remember, everything that says demo here is from that Google Sheet, does not live in the CRM. So I'm right now able to build a report live with a combination of HubSpot data, but also data that just exists through that connection to the data set in Data Studio. So if I wanted to see something like the number of logins split by industry, and maybe say the average number of logins to see like who my most engaged industries are in my customer data set. I could do that pretty easily. And again, these numbers, or actually both these properties are just existing in that data set and the Google sheet that I
Yeah.
showed earlier. I think is pretty cool.
So cool. So cool. Like, so many businesses still require some form of Excel spreadsheet reporting. Like, they'll use that crappy UI that comes in Excel, and you need to
Yeah.
try and like create the best report possible to put into a deck. Like, you can just have that inside of HubSpot with Data Studio if you have that external data set. It's so cool.
Yeah, and something that I got asked a lot when I was working in onboarding, folks just wanted to report on data that maybe didn't have the best home inside the HubSpot CRM. So if you think about, I got asked all the time about like profit and loss reporting,
Mm.
or like really customized kind of like sales forecasts, things like that, where we had to back in the day rack our brains to figure out how that would be a custom object or a property or an event or something crazy. You don't have to really worry about
Yeah.
that anymore. If you can flatten it out into a spreadsheet, you can connect that spreadsheet to Data Studio and report on anything that you want without having to worry about how that data model or how that data fits into your data model. And then what's really cool, like I did in my data set, I can join this totally external data with HubSpot data if I need to, again, without having to figure out how it fits into the CRM or just kind of like bloat what's in my CRM.
Yeah, and it's live, right? The spreadsheet data is live.
Yeah, about 5 minutes. I won't say, like, instantaneous, like, if I were to update a property, it's gonna take a few minutes to trickle through into the report, but live
Yeah,
enough, I'll say, Dan.
awesome.
Cool. Let me check the chat if we have any questions that I could be answering. Can the data agent look across activities, from Josh? Yes, it actually can. That's pretty new. I can go back and show that, inside the
Oh, yeah,
data set if you're
that's a
curious.
good question.
I kinda talked over the agent. I didn't really show what it could actually do.
Yeah, the agent actually has a ton of use cases. I was playing around with that a little bit today. Even outside of Data Studio, um, Data Agent is pretty powerful.
Yeah, so if I wanted to say, well, I don't really have any activities hooked up to this data set, but the short answer is yes to Josh's question. You can look across. You're actually able to choose, I think, 3 different sources now in like buckets. You can choose web research, uh, in general, so like entire web. You can choose company domain research. So like these are all fake hubteam.com, but if it was like hubspot.com or nike.com or whatever, it would go research on that site. Or you can choose unstructured data sources inside HubSpot. So calls, transcripts, meeting notes, that kind of thing. It can search across that. But you're basically just giving it a prompt. So if I were to look at one of these examples, pull this in, generate a personalized cold outreach email based on company name. And maybe I would choose a different property in here, like, what their industry is and their subscription level and how engaged they are. It could do that for me. And then here's that selection where I could say web research, company website, or dataset columns. Actually, I misspoke there.
Cool. Feel free to ask a follow up on that, Josh, if you have one.
It's the actual data agent in the CRM where I can specify what it looks
Yeah.
across. Cool. Other notes that I will say, a couple things about Studio. Um, I mentioned workflows, segments. I didn't touch too much on CRM sync, but if I decided like, hey, this custom usage score that I created where I divided kind of two random numbers, but I divided the account number into number of logins. Maybe the lower that is, the more engaged they are versus their spend. That could be useful to me. Who knows?
Mm.
I could choose to sync that to CRM. So it's like brand new data that I created in the data set. I can choose its destination. I can choose when and how I sync that data and at what frequency. So if I wanted to go every 15 minutes or just every month or somewhere in between, I could do that. And then I choose where that data goes. So if I already had a property created, I could pump it right in, or I could create a new property and come back and then choose to sync this data to the CRM. So again, for just reiterating that this data just exists in the data set in Data Studio, but if I wanted it to exist as an actual property or an object in the CRM, I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, like perfect use case for the custom properties that you're creating inside of this as well, that would not exist unless you did some form of calculation or a combination of things to actually get that data in the first place. And this is an easy place to do that as well, rather than trying to rack your brains at how to create that. Was it a custom usage score? I think you created, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, I think we're gonna talk about data quality here in a sec, but I have increasingly been experimenting with Data Agent to hack my way around some data quality stuff. So if you wanted to say like, hey, confirm that all of my email addresses are .com
Mm,
at the end, where some people might accidentally type .co or like .cam or something like that. Um, the Data Agent will do that and does it quite well. The use case that I found the other day was folks that are misspelling at gmail.com. So like
yeah.
Gmail or Gmlock or something like that. The agent was able to go through and just correct that domain to at Gmail and preserve the rest of the email address. So I guess what I'm getting at is you can do some pretty cool data quality applications with Data Agent directly here in the Data Studio before you choose to do anything with this data, whether it's a CRM sync or a workflow or a report.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to show anything on data quality, because that's kind of the next thing though, isn't it? It's like once you have the data here available to you in the studio, you're bringing it in from all these different sources, any source you want. Really, I think the biggest use case I see is probably Google Sheets, but it's definitely not the only one. No matter where you're bringing it from, once you've decided that that's good data. You want to keep it. Perhaps the next thing to overcome is making sure that it's good quality.
Yeah, totally. I think like that connection, like you said, is the important piece, but then maintaining quality and accuracy and trust over time is very important. So when we relaunched as Data Hub at Inbound last September, the other big thing that we did was completely overhaul this tool. It used to be called the Data Quality Command Center. We changed the name, but we also did a bunch of really cool stuff here on the overview page that I'm a huge fan of. We also did a
Mm,
few fun things with the duplicate tool that I'll show in a second. But in my opinion, by far the best thing that we did in this tool, which you can find under the sandwich menu again, um, we made it a lot easier to understand what was going on with your data and more specifically understand what actions you should take. So we used to have a bunch of graphs and stuff that showed up when you popped in here, which were cool, but like, all right, what do I do with that information? Now we actually tell you. So it's like, hey, you have 348 duplicate issues. You can view those right now. Or I can even say, hey, there's a recommended action. We have a duplicate that's been detected by a parent company. View it. Check out your formatting issues. It'll surface these recommended actions very easily and quickly to me here on the overview page. But say I wanted to like actually action. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
well, I was just gonna frame this dashboard as like this is, even though you change the name from command center, because I think that's a bit gimmicky, to be fair. But
Yeah, I
But
agree.
it is. Like, this is
It is.
your overview, your dashboard for the health of the data inside of your HubSpot portal, ultimately. Like, any duplicate management is an issue I've come over across so many times. Like Coca-Cola is like often a common one when it comes to company names, and because there's so many different types of them, and it's easy to get domains wrong and things like that. But yeah, just the ability to have one place where you go to check all of your duplicates, the formatting stuff, which I'm sure you'll show it, is really, really cool. And from just a
Mhm.
hygiene perspective, having an overview of all of this in one place is super helpful.
Yeah, agree. And this is again, this is something that like you don't need any code to do this. Like it's not very technical. You just come in, you say, okay, like I've got 341 duplicate contacts potentially and 7 duplicate companies. I can come through and just review these. My companies one by one, I could do 7 of these in a second. But if I want to say, okay, HubSpot, .de, probably exactly the same as HubSpot.com, I can go ahead and review that. Um, and I can choose a merge criteria. We'll just say oldest engagement since that's the first company. And then those two records are merged. And I now have 6 duplicate companies instead of 7. If I wanted to, I could have done all these in bulk if I knew they were all good to
Yeah.
go. And same thing for contacts. Like I think just like making sure that, folks that the AI is like surfacing, like, hey, like, Charlotte Schultz is probably the same here as she is here. Um, just like making it easy to go ahead and like take care of, in this case, it's 49 merges in like 3 clicks and 5 seconds here. It's going to think and then it's going to merge these, and I'll have 49 fewer duplicates and data issues in my portal.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. In the interest of time, I will ignore this, which has chosen to take a
I was
long
gonna
time
say,
during my demo. There
every
we go.
time I've used
312.
that, it's been pretty quick, like impressively
It is me. It's funny, like, we get impatient about stuff like this, but I have to remember, like, what the software is actually doing in the background and not just yell at it when it takes more than, like, 2 seconds to do something. Um, what's cool, though, and what's new, so folks may have seen, the duplicate management tool in the past. We're able to create custom duplicate rules now. So what I've been showing is basically HubSpot defaults, where we have the AI match across just, like, normal stuff, like email addresses that look fairly similar, first and last name, company domains, things like that. But now I can create a custom rule. So if I wanted to say like Nick's rule, I could select up to 3 properties to choose to tell the AI to look for matches in. So it's like reason to buy. I'm just going to click a couple random things. This is now a rule on the left-hand side, so I can actually see any duplicates that this rule has caught versus the HubSpot model versus this other custom rule that I had here. We're not going to catch any with these 3 that I chose, but if you did have a property unique to your business or your use case that you wanted to use
yeah.
to find duplicates, we can do that for contacts and companies, which is pretty cool. Couple other things I'll show in here. This is like the ultimate quick win for customers that a lot of folks don't find. So if you have Data Hub, even Data Hub Starter, you can use this feature. But when you click into formatting issues, this shows something a little different than duplicates. This shows just like you can see here, like
Mm.
unexpected spacing or punctuation or a number in a name, and we can just fix that. So for Gus, our friend Gus from HubSpot, we just removed an unexpected space in their name. So maybe the next time they get an automated email from us, it looks a little cleaner. Or for, say this wasn't just customer, I could remove the number from the end of their name. Just common things like that. Like for Wayne here, I can remove that date from his name. Um, What's really cool though about this, and this is the quick win I was alluding to, I have some automation rules on, but if you click here, it's going to just ask you if you want to fix certain common issues immediately when they happen. So you don't even have to look at these. You don't have to think about them. You just say, you know what? I do always want to capitalize first name. I do always want to make email lowercase. And, if I see last name and first name mushed together in one field, we'll split those apart. So just like simple stuff like this, where I could say, turn a couple on. Um, HubSpot's just going to look for that in the background, and the data quality tools will fix these errors as they happen. So that took like longer for me to explain than for me to turn
Yeah.
on. So I think like ultimate quick win if you leave this webinar today and you have Data Hub, go in, turn those rules on, and live a little cleaner in the CRM.
Yeah, that's such an interesting like use case and a key one just to use because I know so many people submit forms on websites using all
Yep.
lowercase or all uppercase. Who knows why? Maybe they're having a bad day and they were messaging somebody before all in uppercase and they're really angry. Or the opposite. Maybe they were,
Yeah. Yeah.
just chose all lowercase for some reason. And when you send an email to somebody and you have their first name like "Hey Dan," but it's all lowercase, you just think like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's a bit uh, that's not great, is it?" So this really just helps to tidy all of that up and make the hygiene of your data consistent and usable to the best of your ability.
Agreed. Agree. I think there's 2, we as consumers, I think we all know that people are personalizing. No one's actually typing that
Yeah,
email out by hand to send to us. So I think anything that we as marketers or as, like, senders of those emails can do to make them look better goes a lot farther, especially now. Because as a consumer and someone that works on a product like this, when I see a lowercase name, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, come on. There's, like, 57 different tools you could use to fix this." So I think it's even maybe more important now that we're all aware of like how email personalization works to really nail that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
for sure. Good point.
Um, Enrichment, I'm not going to touch too much on today. But this has been brought under the umbrella of the data quality overview, so you can not only make sure data is formatted correctly, but you can make sure it's complete right here through the tool. So all the tools you'd expect. This is standard HubSpot enrichment. That's now free, so no credits required for this. But you can enrich company and contact records right here to kind of solve for that completeness part of data quality.
Yeah,
What I
I can touch
Go
on
ahead, man.
enrichment a little bit because it's something that we have running consistently at Blend, and I found a few good use cases for it. The first is when it comes to reporting, being able to actually extract more information about particularly the companies you're working with is really, really useful. You might be reporting on, pipeline or companies from an event, whatever it may be, but you're missing data about how many employees they have, how much revenue they're generating, the industry they're in. Enrichment allows you to extract all of that data for most companies. I've found like there's only the odd like one or two when I'm pulling this that aren't available for enrichment, and enables you to do such more advanced reporting on those data sets and give you a complete overview of okay, who are these companies, these people, and what do they mean to us, and how does that data actually impact then who we market to? If we can extract, you've got there like city, industry, all of these things, well, that might actually inform the way you email them, the way you personalize to them, the way that prospecting agent, if you haven't checked out prospecting agent yet, like please do so because a lot of the tools that Nick's talking about today, the ability to clean data, make sure that it is in a usable format and enriched as well, like that combination to give you the ultimate data set, feeding into prospecting agent, which like hinges off of good data. Without good data, well, actually, I'm breaching on our next point here, Nick, but like it's getting me slightly excited. But I'll stop there
Yeah.
and let you.
Well, I mean, it's a good point. Like, I think like that's something that we can mention with Data Studio. We can mention it with data quality. I think we've all been hearing like the AI is only as good as the data behind it.
Yeah.
Kind of positioning for a while, not just from HubSpot, but it's true. Like I think it's cliche now because we're all saying it because it's true. Like if I'm giving prospecting agent or if I'm giving, any of the predictive or assistant tools in HubSpot bad data, I'm going to get bad results. Like I think, Dan, what we were joking about before everyone hopped on was it's AI, it's not magic. Like I still do have to give it correct, complete information for it to work well. And Data Studio helps with that data access or data like painting that complete picture, giving the tools the complete context, and then the data quality tools that we're showing right now that helps with accuracy and trust in that data. Last thing I want to show, which is very cool, and I don't see enough people using this.
Mm.
Property anomaly alerting is very, very, very cool. So I am not an admin. I am but a lowly marketer. But if I'm in my portal, what would scare me if I didn't have an ops team or if I didn't have an admin, I wouldn't want things to break without me knowing. I meet a lot of folks who are both like the marketer and the default HubSpot admin, and setting up these property anomaly alerts is like kind of like peace of mind for that person. I don't have any in this portal, so I'll say I'll monitor a new property. But what we're going to do, if I want to say monitor a contact property like email, AI is going to look for anomalies in that property fill rate or property changes. So, for example, if I accidentally break something with a workflow, or if I'm getting like spam submissions through a form, or an import goes wrong or something like that, this tool is going to send me an alert if something's going wrong, which I think is just super cool. It's like some peace of mind here. Hopefully, you never have to use this tool. It'll just work in the background and never alert you to anything. But it looks at the fill rate of the property and then intelligently detects just like changes outside of the normal bounds to alert you to the possibility of like a broken integration or something like that that could cause a headache if you don't catch it early enough.
Yeah. I mean, or on the flip side of that, somebody setting up a workflow that perhaps shouldn't have, and all of a sudden it's
Yep,
updated a property against thousands of contacts that probably shouldn't have happened.
exactly.
It's a
Mhm,
protection
exactly.
layer, really, isn't it? Even though
Uh,
it's more of a detection first, but it really does help spot those issues that can just totally slide under the radar.
Yep, exactly. I think like first line of defense, always permissioning and good training for your teams, but like things happen. So yeah, again, hopefully no one ever gets an alert from this tool. But for me, it would be peace of mind just knowing that like someone else that is a robot and not a real person is watching everything that's happening to my properties and can immediately tell me if something looks a little weird.
Yeah, that's cool. I think just just to touch back on the AI angle, because HubSpot's Breeze product is something that, everybody's kind of talking about and wondering how they use and get the most out of right now. Because there are a ton of use cases for Breeze. I think, not to sound like a broken record, but having the right data available to you in the most accurate way possible, in the most enriched way possible, will just help Breeze actually become useful in your portal. If you've tried it out and you've thought, not too sure what like HubSpot's Breeze tools can actually do for me and how they actually support me, Prospecting Agent is the one that comes to mind because I've tried it with enriched data and without enriched data, and like having incomplete data and inaccurate data just causes any AI tool to be ineffective ultimately. And yeah, can't kind of stress enough how important it is to really unlock the power of Breeze, which is an awesome, awesome like underlying tool behind your entire HubSpot portal. You just have to have the data for it to
Yep.
use.
100%. I think another good example is customer agent. Like if I'm
Yeah.
trying to triage
Yeah.
chats or requests or even like frustration from customers, the more customer context or customer data I can give Breeze and the agent, the better that outcome is going to be. Like where I'm not on the other end of that chat as the human wondering why the AI agent doesn't know that I submitted a support ticket 3 hours ago, or that I'm one of the biggest customers of the company or something like that. There's just a lot of stuff that we can feed um, those agents to make that experience better and more informed.
Yeah. And yeah, segmentation when it comes to marketing, like you, a marketer, and think about how we can create different cohorts of our customers, of our buyers, to
Yeah.
market to in the best way possible. Using Data Studio, bringing in the properties that you want to bring in, like from that data set that you might not want to directly embed in your HubSpot portal as like your day-to-day operations, allow you to segment and email and like go to market to these different segments of your buyers, of your customers with such ease, with little risk as well, really, when it comes to um like the health of your CRM.
Yeah. 100%. I think slight topic change, but the other thing that I didn't touch on for Studio, now I'm just kind of like riffing, the data sets are also a reporting front end. So a lot of times we'll see teams that, like as a marketer, maybe you're working with your sales team or a team of marketers, and they need to build their own reports.
Mm,
But it's very challenging sometimes to explain to somebody, hey, like you use this property, and then this filter, and then you can run your monthly revenue reports. With a data set, if I wanted to save a cut of data for someone to use as a starting point for a custom report, I can do something like that
yeah,
too, which I think is really cool. Maybe something that doesn't get enough shine is the fact that I could just say, hey, here's your deals data that you need. Here's like the 10 or 15 different custom properties pre-filtered for you, sales manager, run with that to build your report. So kind of a cool thing that we can do with either external data or internal data with data sets that solves what I've noticed is a pretty common pain point among customers.
yeah, that's really cool. um Nick, whilst we kind of round things out here, have you got from experience from HubSpot customers who benefits most from Data Hub? Who should like really be looking at this or trying to get the most value from it if they already have it as part of their suite?
I think it's marketing teams with sales or service or success are all different teams scattered in different tools. That's what we've noticed so far is it's marketing teams with other tools in the stack that other teams are using, or larger marketing teams or teams that just have a broader tech stack in general. So for example, if you're using like a data warehouse, or several other apps to manage things, like that's who's really benefiting right now, but especially marketers with a sales team or a service team or both that are working outside of HubSpot have had a lot of success with Studio right now.
Yeah, I think uh that for sure, like when it comes to studio, when it comes to data quality, I think there's another cohort of companies that just ingest huge amounts of data
Yeah.
on a daily basis. It might be that you have connections with like Zoom Info, Apollo, or you're just doing so many events, having so many imports, like time and time again, just hit your HubSpot account. Having some way to manage that from a hygiene perspective, I think is important. I do still think Data Studio plays a part in even in that scenario as well, giving you the ability to like control that data before you act on it is important. But yeah, I think companies that just are overwhelmed with data are a really good fit.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I did not mention too, if we have any developers or admins or folks that are more technical ever catch this or are on right now, we have APIs for Data Studio as well. So as we think about extensibility of that functionality, um, an API endpoint that allows you to write files in to Data Studio is huge. So if something doesn't have a pre-built connection with us, being able to programmatically add data from whatever other platform or middleware is a huge unlock, in my opinion, for Studio and that story of like data connectivity and data activation.
Yeah, yeah, love that. Okay. Any kind of last things you want to touch on, Nick?
No, I think that was it. I forgot to mention APIs during my demo, so I had to get that in last second in case somebody summarizes the transcript or something later on. But
Yeah, no
yeah.
what's the best way to go and find out more about Data Hub from a HubSpot perspective?
It depends on your current situation. So if you're an existing Data Hub customer, I would 100% recommend the HubSpot Academy. We just released over the last several months a bunch of 3 and 4 minute long videos that explain these concepts in higher levels and even like a little bit deeper than I went today. So I'd recommend that. If you do not have Data Hub, I would reach out to um, your sales representative or CSM if you're an existing customer, and they can get you set up, or even Dan, I guess, to you.
Yeah.
They could reach out as well for a little bit of additional
Yeah,
information.
for sure. I'd love to demo this. I've been playing around in our own portal, like with real data, and yeah, have made some good progress with how this can be used to show different use cases. So there'll be an email that goes out after this. If you want to see more of that, then just hit reply and we can set something up for sure. All right. Well, let's wrap it up
Awesome.
there. Nick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the demo. That was really, really cool. Like seeing the flow, the steps, I think it really helps to make sense of the different tools and how you go from studio to quality, et cetera, et cetera.